through the noise with a culture attack. Pop culture, films, and the world we see. Deleted scenes where the truth runs free. Take care, stay strong, we're breaking the mold. Be safe, stay healthy, let the story unfold. From watch parties, reviews to the news we spin. Deleted scenes, yeah, this is how we win. Take care, stay strong, we're breaking the mold. Be safe, stay healthy, let the story unfold. From watch parties, reviews to the news we spin. Deleted scenes, yeah, this is how we win. Let's roll.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen out there in YouTube land. I am Deleted Scenes, human being, American, and YouTube Ronin. And I'd like to welcome you to tonight's episode of Unscripted. I want to say hello to everyone currently following along on X. I can't see you, but I know that you're there. I want to say hello to a few people who have joined us here in the live chat. First one, Jamie Lynn Simons, thank you. Faithful Blue Wrench, the bird woman of YouTube. Watch out for her channel, Fluff Chip Productions. It's Connie Clary. My co-host on the Mystery Movie Night podcast, Enigma Severus. No, last night was Films with Friends. Now, I had originally intended to do a completely different show this evening. I was going to talk about the recent statements made by Reacher actor Alan Ritson, who said words to the effect that Catholics and Trump supporters needed to get their teeth knocked out and wake up in a puddle of their own blood. Now, apparently this man seems to have forgotten that conservatives are the ones who are watching his show, and that they would have been the primary audience for his movie Motor City, which was a movie that no one knows is in existence unless you have an ear to the ground like I do. A movie that was an independent film, low budget, and no marketing. So you would think that the star of the film would use the press junket to make people aware of the film. He chose not to do that and decided to threaten his main fan base. In the immortal words of one Tony Stark, not a very good plan. And the movie is currently residing in, I believe, the 18th spot. It's going to be on streaming in a fortnight. And I'm not going to watch it there either. And as for the Reacher series, I think I'll stick to the books. Now, apparently, you have Jonah Hill, of all people. Yeah, super bad, that guy. running around saying, I know Taekwondo, I can beat people up. Oh, yeah, we're shaking, kid. Yeah, I'm shaking. All you got to do is smoke some more weed, get hungry, and then you'll gain all the weight back again. So, button it, little man. These guys, they think they're tough. They think they're tough guys. They believe they're press. They believe they are the characters they play. But I'll tell you something. I've seen men bigger piss their pants at a lot less. Hello to friend of the channel, D. Penzak. Hello to Aged Boomer, the host of Geeky Geezers, which will be going as scheduled at the top of the next hour. Stay to the end of this broadcast. You will be redirected to his channel. So that's what I was going to talk about tonight. But then something else came up. Something that I thought was a lot more devastating to the country, to the world, to childhood development, to what I believe was the intention: population control and dividing the people of this country into two camps through propaganda and the news and entertainment media. Hello to Big Al Presents, host of Films with Friends, creator of the 10-Word Review. Hello to channel member JPRPH1. Good to see you, sir. Our man from the future, Sashi. Anthony Fauci, a man who I will straight up refuse to refer to as doctor, testified, if you could call it that, in front of Congress, during which he pled the fifth 111 times, which is always a wise career choice. He even refused to answer the question, what color is the carpeting? He pled the fifth to that. Let me tell you a little something about Anthony Fauci, because I remember this guy back from when the AIDS epidemic started. And I got to tell you, there are a lot of people who are dead. Not just a lot of gay men who are dead. There are hemophiliacs who are dead. And a lot of people who got the wrong information. Because even when the AIDS epidemic was going on, this guy was out there saying that you could get it off of a toilet seat. This was a guy who said you could get it if you were in the same room as someone who was infected. He was saying that crap even back then. So if you want to go and blame someone for how gays were being treated during the AIDS epidemic, you don't go blaming Ronald Reagan. Okay, this is one of the guys you can go and blame. Because of the misinformation that he was putting out at that time. TMZ, the people who thought it was funny when Charlie Kirk was murdered, they claim to care about all of the people who died of AIDS back then, back in the 80s. But yet they praise Fauci. So I really wonder how much they really do care. And in a side note, people, treat TMZ for what it is: a tabloid. Axe media. That is all they are. Harvey Levin is just another one of these schoolyard punks who think that they are better than everyone else and can tell everybody what to do. He's talking the way he's talking right now because he's got a beef against Trump that goes way back, that has to do when they were both executive producers on a show that had to do with a beauty pageant. That's all it is. This is his idea of getting back at the man. You got to ignore people like Levin. You have to, look, you pretty much have to ignore mainstream news media. And before anybody jumps into my shit, I'm talking about Fox News as well. I am talking about so-called conservative media as well, because those people turn on a dime when it suits them. You have to go to independent means. Anthony Fauci is a demon. He is not a hero. And I don't care if YouTube takes my channel down or I get a bunch of liberals trying to say that, I wanted grandma to die or something like that. I knew people who died because of COVID. I have heard the stories from friends about family members dying alone because the rest of their family was not allowed to be with them. And hello to Shadow of the Raven. There are a lot of things that went wrong. I refer to the lockdowns as an involuntary house arrest, because there weren't all that many places where I could go. And this part of the show is going to be me speaking to my experiences, because at this point I didn't have anybody else to go off of. Now, my father died in 2018, and he died from a stroke, but he had a number of different health issues that were affecting him. Now, if he had been alive when COVID was taking place, I would have had to keep him inside the house by the rules, quote unquote, that were being set down. 2 weeks to stop the curve. Remember that? 2 weeks that became years. People locking themselves up in their own house. People wearing masks. People wrapping themselves in plastic, for God's sake. Now, the rules would have said, because your father is in the condition that he's in, you will need to keep him inside because he is susceptible to the disease. And oh, by the way, while you are in the house alone with him, you have to stand 6 feet and 1 inch away from him at all times. Well, I got to tell you something. My father was someone who was his own man. You didn't get to tell him what to do. So I tell you all this about locking himself down in his home, all of this about him having to wear masks and get the jab. He would not have done any of that shit. And I tell you what, I would not have stopped him. Mainly because I didn't want to get hit. My dad was a tough guy. Grew up on the streets of New York. Survived Vietnam. Was in law enforcement. My dad was not a pushover by any stretch of the imagination. Even when he was sick, he could still knock me on my ass. So keeping him inside would not have been an easy thing to do. Let me know if I'm still buffering, folks. Now, and hello and welcome to Repo Jack. Hope I pronounced that right. All right. So, like I said, keeping my dad inside would not have been an easy thing to do. So, in a way, it's probably best that my dad passed away when he did. Because I think if he were still around today, trust me, he would be very disappointed by a lot of people. So when COVID happened, I was on my own. You know, I was living in and am currently living in what was my father's house. When he passed, he signed a deed over to me in survivorship. So I am now currently living in my dad's old house, on his property, and have been doing what I can to maintain it. So I spent the COVID epidemic inside because a lot of places were shut down. There weren't a whole lot of places to go. I was very much, as you know, a big movie fan. So I used to go to the theaters a lot. That was my fallback position. You want to go someplace, go to a movie. So the theaters are shut down. So I couldn't do that. I worked in as shortly after my father passed. I went to work in a restaurant. I had taken off work from to take care of him in his what turned out to be his final days, because I didn't want to leave him. You know, he was. Like I said, my dad could take care of himself. He was a tough guy, but he was ill, and I didn't want to leave him for too long. So I stayed close and tried not to go too far for too long. But after he passed, I went back to work, and I went to work in a restaurant. And one of the places that were the hardest hit by all the mandates were restaurants. Beauty salons was another. Nerderotics, Mrs. can go into that story, but the restaurants were the hardest hit because they had a lot of a lot of the mandates affected how we went about doing business. One of the things, well, two of the things really, that I refused to do was to mask up. Sorry, folks, I didn't do it. I went out one time in a mask, and I even got myself a selfie of it wearing a mask. And I never did it again because there was something that felt off about it to me. And there weren't a lot of people around. And hello to Gap After Dark. Good to see you, sir. And one of the reasons why I decided that masking up was silly, because a lot of the places where I was going was that, people weren't around. A lot of the places that I went to did not have a lot of people because they had people so frightened of going out in public and going outside because you're going to get sick and you're going to die. And that's what they put out there. Now, in retrospect, we now know that the people who were the most susceptible to COVID were people who had cancer and people who had respiratory issues. Now, my dad had respiratory issues, so he was one of these people who would have been susceptible to contracting COVID. But like I said, this was a man who was going to do his own thing. I was not going to be able to control him. If I tried, it was going to be get out of the way, and you know. So keeping him inside would have been a chore. And after a while, I would have just let him go. Now, I did say that I knew someone who died from COVID, and he was the one of the uncles of my girlfriend at the time, and I met him once, rather ironically, at a funeral. Very nice man. I liked him a lot. I liked him right away. And but he had cancer. And when the COVID epidemic happened, he died from a mixture of the COVID and cancer. So when people say to me that well, if you had known anybody who had died, you would have understood. You'd have understood better, you would have been more cautious, you would have been over on our side, But I know someone who died. And you know what? It didn't change my opinion. Because I tell you something else that I didn't do, and something else that I didn't do is I didn't get the jab. Which again precluded me from being able to enter into a lot of businesses. I used to think, what difference does it make? What are they going to do? Are they going to check? Are they going to check your medical records? How are they going to know? Is it stamped on your forehead? No, I didn't get the vax. No, I'm not masking up. No. And let me tell you something about the people who would, let me say something to the people who would throw anti-vaxxer in my face and the people who did throw it in my face at that time. I got vaccinated as a kid. I took all the shots when I was a little kid, and it was a fun experience that I remember to this day. I barely even remember it. All I remember was I was there with my mom, and I was there with the doctor. It was a female doctor, and they gave me this little sugar cube and said that the sugar cube was one of the shots. But looking back on it, I think, they gave me the sugar cube so I would be thinking about, oh, nice, sugar. I am tasting sugar right now. So that, that would be like the sugar that would make the castor oil go down, because I don't remember the shots. I just remember that sugar cube. And I was in and out of there in a few minutes. Clean bill of health. And I got to tell you, folks, aside from that little colon cancer scare I had recently, I have not had any major diseases. Whenever I've ever gotten sick, it's just been from the regular good old garden variety flu. Or I had some stomach bug or something like that. But I've never had anything that affected me in that way, And whenever I've gone to a doctor, one of the things that they have always told me is that you have a very strong immune system. And I always kept that in mind. The entire time that COVID was going on, I did not get sick with anything except for one day, and that was dehydration. I went home, I drank some Gatorade, I took some medicine, I laid down for 6 hours. And then I called up my job and said, "Can I come back to work? Because I feel better now." Now, what happened eventually was, like I said, working at the time, in a restaurant where there are these, at the time, pretty stringent rules. And I was unwilling to follow those rules. And I was vocal about the fact that I was not going to follow these rules. I refused at that point to mask up because I'm healthy. I wasn't getting sick. I wasn't around all that many people, just as the nature of the beast, to not be sick. So it's like, well, you got to stay away from crowds. I go, dude, you've gotten rid of all of the crowds. You're only letting a certain number of people into stores and restaurants at a time. You're making everybody sit apart from each other. So you got this whole antisocial thing that is beginning to happen. And we now know what has come of that. People who believe that there are no rules and that they can do whatever they want to whoever they want because they're not going to get touched. But that's another story for another time. Now, I refused to get the jab, and I refused to get the jab for the fact that I was starting to hear about people who were, you know, people who were getting the jab, who were getting sick. Anyway, and being sick for weeks. I was hearing about people who were having trouble moving their arm that they had taken the injection in. And then I started hearing about people who were suddenly having strokes, people who were suddenly contracting Bell's palsy, people who are healthy who didn't have COVID but got counted as having COVID, who were dropping dead. The people who were, quote unquote, died suddenly. While my brother, he got married uh, uh, in the middle of the pandemic. He wanted me to be his best man. I couldn't go because of the restrictions. I got to see I got to see the wedding. They made a video. Um, One of the reasons was for people who couldn't be there. So I got to see it. And I got to see all the pictures, And, that was fine. It was the next best thing to being there. But I would like to have actually been there. So people who are in that kind of a situation, I could understand, because of not being able to travel, of not being allowed to see loved ones. I could understand that because I had been in that situation. My girlfriend was a woman who was in ill health on and on throughout her life. And she was someone that had to deal with a lot. She had to deal with the health issues. She had to do with what those health issues would do to her weight, because her weight would fluctuate, too, and so it was an issue with her. And there were, like I said, she was advised against having her child. She had him anyway, and great kid. I love that kid like he was my own son. And I saw him more than his own father ever did. So I felt like the father figure to him. When COVID was going on, she contracted a kidney ailment, and she basically had to live in basically in this rehab center to recover. One of the things that her doctors insisted that she do was get the jab. Even though she had already even though she had already and hello Tim, even though she had already had COVID and gotten past it, and her son had it, he got past it. But she did what the doctors told her, and she got the jab. And when she was in the rehab center, she died. She fell into a coma, and 2 days later, she passed away. Now, the last time that I spoke to her, which thankfully was a FaceTime situation, so I did get to talk to her face to face. But she said that she was happy, she was feeling better, and that she was ready to go home because she was going to go home the next morning. But she, sometime after we hung up, was when she went into the coma. And as I said, 2 days later, died. And when I didn't hear back from her, I was like, I started calling and calling and calling, and I didn't hear anything back until 2 days after she passed. That's when her family finally decided to inform me, and I had to call them to find out if she was okay. And I got a hold of one of her other uncles, a guy I knew who I got along with, and he told me that she passed. Now, I don't know for sure if it was the kidney ailment that killed her or if it was the jab that killed her. I'm never going to know. But I've got that in the back of my mind. I know it's late where you are. Take care. Great. Stay well. Now, I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was her illness that took her, or if it was the jab, or if it was a combination of the two. And I'm never going to know. But I'm going to have that in the back of my mind. Now, when Biden pardoned Fauci, uh, shielded him from any wrongdoing, I wasn't surprised. Every president does it, and they do it to shield their buddies and the people who paid to get them into office. Every president from every party does it. It's one of the things that I wish would stop. But he did it. So finally, they do get this guy in front of Congress. And he doesn't answer any questions. All we do know is what we know from his diary excerpts that got out. And it seems like this guy was more interested in hobnobbing with Hollywood actors than trying to find a cure for this disease, which, by the way, was man-made, which, by the way, was allowed to get loose, which I believe had to do with population control. And now that I'm looking back on it, I'm starting to wonder if AIDS wasn't the same fucking thing. And every major disease that has ever swept through this country or across the world, you gotta wonder. I'm not going to have time tonight to talk about that here. But it's got me curious. It's got me curious about a lot of things. Hollywood thinks this guy is a hero. The mainstream press think this guy is a hero. Why is Trump going after this man? He sacrificed so much for us. Yeah, I've heard that line before. But the people who are dead are still dead. All that time that we were locked in our homes, I found an outlet. I came here. This show got started because I didn't have anybody left to talk to. I wasn't working. I couldn't go out anywhere. All the shows I was seeing on television were getting increasingly woke, calling people scumbags. It was a lot of propaganda. So I stopped watching that. So I came here. And I found you. And you've all had a lot to say. Hello to Bush McFadden. Good to see you, sir. And speaking of the chat, you all have had a lot to say, and I don't want to ignore you. Enigma says, my dad died from COVID pneumonia. He was unable to take the medication due to prior health issues, which would have been one of the issues with my dad as well. He still lived a lot even during that time, and he was happy. My condolences to your father, Enigma, and to your grandmother, Gap After Dark. Sashi says, my brother got the mRNA stuff. He now has blood clotting issues that are unexplained. And demonetized. Well, I gotta tell you, Tim, YouTube doesn't pay me anything anyway. Anybody who's going to come on after this and say that, I'm doing this show as part of a grift, I get paid pennies, literal pennies, for the shows that I do. I don't make a whole lot of money off of my channel. I make enough to basically stay on the air, and that's it. So if I get demonetized, honestly, I don't care. They're not paying me anything anyway. Shadow the Raven said, I doubt much will happen to Fauci or anyone else who should be killed. Probably not. But you know who these ones are. You know what they're capable of. So our eye is on them. They need to worry about us now. Okay? Any media reporting on the Fauci situation in the U.S. The mainstream press think he's a hero, and the alternative press are the ones who are reporting the facts. So that's what the situation is in the media right now. And thank you, sir, for becoming a member. All right. Let me see. There's a few more in the chat here. God will judge them when the time comes. You get where you're coming from. Thank you. Let's see. They've been trying to control the population for a long time now. When it start, who knows? It could have started as far back as the Black Plague, man. I don't know. But I tell you where I believe it started in my lifetime. I don't think he's going to get the chair, Jamie Lynn. But he certainly should get some jail time, for sure. Folks, I have said this before. That there are demons among us. And they're not, they're not like, they don't look like the devil, and they don't have horns. They're in suits. But we're on to them now. You're good people. You're smart people. And you get lied to on a daily basis by people who think they are better than you. I say bullshit. They are not better than you. They will never be better than you. You get to call the shots in your own lives. Question authority. Do not let these people tell you what to do. And thank you, Repo Jack. I do appreciate it. This is not over. I'm glad that this man was finally exposed to for what he is, but the job is not yet done. This is the time when we have to start pushing back. We're going to take control of our lives again. And this is where it's going to start. Geeky Geezers is going to be starting in a couple of minutes. So I'm going to end the show here tonight. Thank you to everyone who was watching. Thank you to the new subscribers, to the new members. From HQ, in all points, north, south, east, west, and beyond, good night. Take care, stay strong, be safe and healthy, because this is how we win.
It's even odd Neuronins back, slicing through the noise with a culture attack. Pop culture, films, and the world we see. Deleted scenes, where the truth runs free. Take care, stay strong, we're breaking the mold. Be safe, stay healthy, let the story unfold. From watch parties reviews to the news we spin. Deleted scenes, yeah, this is how we win. Take care, stay strong, we're breaking the mold. Be safe, stay healthy, let the story unfold. From watch parties, reviews to the news we spin. Deleted scenes, yeah, this is how we win. Yeah. Steam it out in your YouTube, bro, let's roll.
That's all, folks.